Okay, so now we're going to do creating a graph, making a graph backwards, given the domain and the range. So we did with just the domain, and then your warm-up today was just with the range, and now it's with both the domain and the range. So a little bit harder. It's still going to be just one. So how might we start on this?
This is really easy.
Wait, am I done? Wait, you have to like see like where they intersect, right? It's not like.
So we've got to have we're going to have a starting point and an ending point. What might be a starting point?
One.
Negative 1, 1. So that negative 1, 1, does that need to be solid or dotted? Or solid or open circle? Solid.
Wait, it's present. Oh, wait.
Oh, and then 4, 6.
Oh, yeah, because that has the
And then what might be our next point?
4, 6.
Okay, you guys are going to have to do this, so you need to pay attention. Our ending point might be what? 4, 6. Open circle or closed? And then so we've got everything in between.
You have to do some.
Could it be straight? Sure. It just can't go outside of the domain from negative 1 to 4 or outside of the range from 1 to 6. So I'm going to draw another one that would give me the same domain and range. And you tell me whether it works. Does that work instead?
Oh, no. Okay.
So does that have a domain that goes from negative 1 to 4? Yeah, it does. So negative 1 to 4, and then the range goes from 1 to 6. So either one of those. So I started with these two, or I could start with those two if I want. That's what I did with the blue. You don't have to draw both of those. I just wanted to show you you don't have to use just the first two. Okay, so where might we start on number 2? How about negative 2, negative 6?
Yes. I'll do it's negative 6.
And then closed circle or open circle on negative 2, negative 6? Closed because? Yeah, less than or equal to on both of them. So what would be my next
I'm going to ask for this.
Yes. So now I'm going to use my 5 for my domain and the 3. And it would be open. Why would it be open?
Because it's the regular left hand.
That's right. There's no equal symbol there. Does that make sense? And then we just need to connect that. It can't go outside my domain and range. So if I want to connect it just with a straight line, I can. If I want to curve it, I can. I just couldn't go like that, because then that brings my domain out here, and I don't want that. Okay, next one, number 3. Where might I start on number 3?
It's a little slow.
4, -2. Good. Open or close circle at 4, -2.
Open.
Open because both of these don't include the 4 or the -2. So 4, -2. Open circle. And then I need to go in a positive direction for my domain. For infinity. And then I need to go in a positive direction for my range. So where does my arrow need to go?
Oh, up. Up to the right.
What do you guys think about what people said? Yes, it has to go. So this, if it goes up here, then it's going to go, that domain is going to go in the positive direction, and then the range is in the positive infinity direction. Okay, number 4 is a little bit harder. You've had consistently had a difficult time with that one. Sunny?
Yeah.
Yeah, on God.
So, any idea where you might start on number 4? So, the hardest part about this one, I think, is this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some dotted lines that will give me a boundary. So -1. And then I'm going to go 1 on the y. So I know that I can't go above this line or below this line. You don't have to. I'm just giving a visual to help with the graph, because I think that's the harder part. So where can I draw within there that would give me a range that goes from -infinity to infinity?
Gone.
Okay, so what do I do inside there?
You draw a line pointing away.
The problem with a line is I have to get up to here and down to here. So what do you think about this? Was that going to cover my range? It doesn't cover my range. So it's the right idea. It's just like I need to cover that range. Yep. But it has to cover the range. It has to go from -1 to 1.
Oh, you can draw a diagonal.
I know this is hard. So here's an example. I think this is probably the hardest one from what we're doing today.
It's going to be like a squiggly line.
Yeah.
That's what I put.
Oh, good. Good. I know.
Yeah,
I've had ones like that I've asked you to find the domain and range for, but I know you've never drawn something like that. If we drew a graph, that would be like a sine graph or a cosine graph, but you've never drawn. So see how it goes up to the 1 and down to the -1. Okay, let's go to number 5. Okay, -infinity to infinity, my domain, and my range is 1 to infinity.
Oh my God, you're both sides.
So what might that graph look like?
We'll go from left to right.
So y value of 1.
Don't do
that gives me my domain goes from negative infinity to 1. What would go to positive infinity? Yeah, continue with it. And then that's going to go to positive infinity. So this arrow goes from negative infinity, this arrow goes to positive infinity, and then the range starts from, oops, what's wrong with this one? It doesn't start at, it has to start at 1. So it needs to go like this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So next one, 3, 7, negative 2, 7. So this 3 has an open circle, this negative 2 does not. So if I start with the point 3, negative 2, what will it need to be, open or closed? It has to be open in order for that 3 not to be included. So if I start at 3, negative 2, it's going to be open. But I am going to have to cover that y value of negative 2 somewhere in there. So what might be my next point? 7, 7. And it's going to be open. And then how might I get my negative 2 in my range? What might I do on that graph? This is another tricky one. So could I start going up and then come back down? So I can come back down and touch it. And then I have to cover what else? 7. So I have to go up to the 7 and then come back to that point. I know. Your range has to go from negative 2 to 7. Not to go to negative 4. So because I'm not over here at this point, it has to be on
Why your eyebrows bushy? You're such an bushy eyebrows.
So like if these are the same as both of these were
Oh no, I'm actually
it's one's a parentheses and one's closed.
So now you're missing
Good question, Will. Okay, what about number 7? This one I think is a little easier. I think that's 6. Let's just start on number 7. Can we start at a point? Y value of negative 3, x value of 4. So 4, negative 3, open or closed?
Open.
Open because of the parentheses here and the parentheses here. So I need my domain to go to negative infinity and my range to go to positive infinity. So where must my arrow go?
Oh, to the left.
To the left, that's right, good. You can go squiggly, you can go straight, but it has to go up to the left because my domain is negative infinity here and my range is positive infinity to the left. Does that make sense? Go ahead and see if you can do number 8 on your own. Try that on your own. Think about what we did on that last one. See if you can do number 8 on your own.
I'm not gonna walk around nothing. Tumbling.
Yeah, I tried to show one. I mean,
And then you get like,
I was like, me, that's what I was thinking.
so it doesn't have to go up.
Wait, you're
I haven't done this.
Well, you know,
wait, Miss Costello.
yeah, if you don't speak to people who speak to you like this, I always give respect to Maya. We're older than you. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are supposed to.
Yeah, you respect that.
What happened with that after Joe? These are not after Joe.
He's older than you too. Respect him.
I literally don't know. John knows that that's gonna be tough.
Oh,
That's kind of funny.
yeah.
Will this be
So my, take a look at your other, your group members. I am so sorry.